سورة المباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء، العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكره ولا ينقص من شكره ولا يخيب من دعاه ولا يقطع رجاء من رجاه. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام. We begin by offering our condolences to the Imam of our time and to all the mu'mineen around the world as we commemorate these tragic events of Karbala and Ashura. In our theme titled Maximizing the Dunya for Our Akhirah, allow me to just give you a summary of where we have reached so far. We began by talking about the importance of focusing on the akhirah. Why? Because that is the place that we have been created for. Allah has promised us both the quality, that we will get better, and the quantity, that it will be more lasting. We then tried to understand the dunya, and we realized that the dunya is a means for the akhirah and that it is a planting ground to reach the akhirah. We then moved on to the importance of having a goal in everything that we do, especially a goal in our lives. That's titled The Purpose of Life, and we discussed the dangers of nihilism. The following day, we tried to identify what is our goal in life and what is the path to achieve that goal. And we concluded that the goal in our lives is ma'rifatullah, to know Allah, not just in the mind, not just through seeing, but through embodying and manifesting His attributes. The path to that goal is through ibadah. Ibadah meaning to be an abd of Allah, to be owned by Allah in terms of our actions, our possessions, and our existence. After this, we tried to introduce some keys that will help us to maximize the dunya for the sake of the akhirah. The first key was that of punctuality, and we discussed the dangers of procrastination. The second key was that of progress, and we discussed the dangers of stagnation. Last night, we moved on to the importance of continuous learning and progress in religion, and we talked about how this is very important, especially when it comes to the fundamentals of our religion. And therefore, we discussed the levels of Tawheed, how Tawheed can be in our beliefs, it can be in our actions, and it can also be in our inner states. Today, I wish to present to you another key that will help us in our goal of maximizing the dunya for the sake of our akhirah, and that is the fact that this journey that we are on is actually a very long journey. If Allah is infinite, you can argue that the path to Allah is also infinite. And so this requires a lot of time, dedication, and perseverance. The key that we want to introduce today is the key of sabr, the key of perseverance and patience. Now I want to take you to the time when Imam Hussein alayhi salam is leaving Mecca. If you remember, there are many people trying to convince him not to leave or to wait till after the Hajj and then leave after the rituals are over. I quote to you what the Imam says to the people at that time. When he is leaving, he says, رِضَى اللَّهِ رِضَانَا أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ. We, the Ahlul Bayt, are pleased by the pleasure of Allah. نَصْبِرُ عَلَى بَلَائِهِ وَيُوَفِّيَنَا أُجُورَ الصَّابِرِينَ. We remain steadfast in the face of his trials, so that he may reward us the reward of the Sabirin. The Imam is singling out this quality, this group of people who are called the Sabirin, and saying that they have a special reward that we, the Ahlul Bayt, want to be part of. Then on the day of Ashura, many of the companions have already reached Shahada, and there are a few companions left. Now, as we know, when we look at the face of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, reports say that as the intensity grew stronger, as the hardships increased, the face of Imam Hussein alayhi salam grew brighter and brighter. But that wasn't the case for everybody. Imam Hussein comes in at this stage in order to try and motivate the rest of the companions and give them energy. And he says the following to them. He says, Sabran banil kiram, have sabr, O sons of noble men. فَمَا الْمَوْتُ إِلَّا قَنْطَرَةٌ. For death is not except as a bridge. تَعْبُرُ بِكُمْ عَنِ الْبُؤْسِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ إِلَى الْجِنَانِ الْوَاسِعَةِ وَالنَّعِيمِ الدَّائِمَةِ. It is not except a bridge that leads you from calamity and distress to the lofty gardens of paradise and eternal blessing. So we see right from the beginning of the mission, the Imam is determined. He is ready to persevere through this mission, come what may. No matter how many trials and hardships there are going to be, he is ready to persevere. Not only that, but he is also giving the companions motivation and helping them to be ready and helping them to persevere through the difficulties that they are going to be facing. The question now comes, what about us? Year on year, we are here gathering on the days of Muharram and mourning the tragedies that took place on the day of Ashura. It's true, we are supposed to mourn the calamities and the tribulations that the Ahlul Bayt went through. However, it's not supposed to stop just there. We have to ask this question, how did they do it? How is it that they managed to persevere despite the intensity of this hardship? And how is it that I can apply this into my own life? And so, what we want to do today is answer the following 4 questions. Number 1, what is the station of the Sabirin? Number 2, what is the true meaning of sabr? Number 3, what are the key components of sabr? And number 4, how is it that we can implement this in our own lives? If you are with me, then please recite 3 salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's okay. So the first question is, what is the station of the Sabirin? Once again, we will look into the ayat of the Quran to find what is it that they have been singled out for. Now, if we look at this famous verse that is in Surah Al-Baqarah, which also tells us about why we have been created. It says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. We will surely test you with a measure, with a small amount of what? Of fear and hunger and loss. Loss of what? Loss of wealth, loss of lives, and loss of produce. And then it says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And give good tidings to the Sabirin. Who are these Sabirin? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. These are the people who, when an affliction befalls them, they say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to Allah and to Him we are returning. Not we will return. Look at the words, raji'un. We are returning. This is a journey that we are on, constantly returning to Allah. أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. It is they who receive the blessings of their Lord and His mercy, and it is they who are the rightly guided. Allah is telling us a few things in this ayah. Number one, we have been created for being tested. Don't go looking around for comfort over here. You have been created to be tested through these means: fear, hunger, loss of lives, loss of produce, loss of wealth. This is going to be part and parcel of our lives. Expect this. Number two, who is the one who is going to pass this test? It is the sabirin. Bashir as-sabirin, Allah is saying, give good tidings to these guys. Why? Because they are the ones who are going to be successful in this test. Who are these people? They're the people who, not like us, who ritually just say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. For us, it may be a customary thing. We say it too. When somebody passes away, the first thing that comes out of our mouth is, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But little do we think about what it means, because it is at the level of the tongue. For these people who are the true sabirin, it comes from the heart. They actually realize that whatever difficulties they are going to get into this world, it is not something to be too concerned about, because we belong to Allah and we are returning to Him. We're not going to be staying here very long. What does Allah promise them? When the Imam Hussein alayhi salam is saying that we want to have the reward of the sabirin, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. They get the special mercy and they get the special blessings of Allah. Now, question here arises that when we say they get the special mercy of Allah, what is mercy firstly? And what do we mean by the special mercy of Allah? If I were to ask you this question, what is mercy? We would probably picture a scenario, wouldn't we? That when we are about to leave the masjid, we walk outside and we see that there is somebody sitting there who doesn't have any food, very little clothes, no shelter. What would happen to us in that state? We would feel a sense of pity. We will feel a sense of sympathy. And if it is strong enough, then we will put our hands in our pockets and give something to that person. But what does it mean for Allah to have mercy? Does Allah go through these emotions of sympathy and pity? We say Allah doesn't go through emotions, Allah doesn't change. So then what does it mean for Allah to have mercy? When we see mercy, when it comes to Allah, we see that these pity and the feelings that we were going through were simply prerequisites for the actual mercy. The actual mercy was when we gave that thing to the person who was needy. And so we can define this mercy. If you want a deeper discussion of this, you can look at the tafsir al-Mizan, where Allama Tabatabai goes into this in detail, and he concludes with the fact that mercy from Allah is the act of giving. But he doesn't stop there. Why? Because say for example, I have two notes. I have 200 rupee notes. And I go outside and I want to give these in charity. On the one hand, I see this man sitting there without clothes, without shelter, without food. On the other hand, I see a man getting into his Mercedes Benz and he is on his way to the airport, about to fly to the Far East to enjoy a holiday for 5 days on his yacht. I decide I want to be charitable today, so I give one note to the man who is sitting there without anything, and I give one note to the man who has just entered his car. Is both of them considered to be mercy? It's not. In fact, the guy who sat in his Mercedes will probably become very angry at me and hit me. But apart from that, we realize that it doesn't count as mercy, because mercy is not just the act of giving, it is the act of giving to somebody who is in need. And there's something very interesting over here. Surah Ar-Rahman, when Allah introduces Himself, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, what's the next thing He says? Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim is in Bismillah. What about Surah Ar-Rahman? In Surah Ar-Rahman, He says, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Quran, right? So the first thing that Allah is seeing as a manifestation of His mercy is the fact that He taught us the Quran. When we, like yesterday we said, when we want to grow in the religion, we want to progress in the religion, we have to make sure that we're going through the right channels. The Quran is a mercy for us, telling us what? It is something that Allah has given, not just that He's given it, but because we need it. Mercy is that which is given because we need it. Okay, so we've established what mercy means. But what do we mean by the special mercy of Allah? Here is where we can refer to Bismillah. When we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, there is the Rahmaniyya of Allah and there is the Rahimiyya of Allah. What is the difference between these two? Are they simply synonyms for the Quran to feel like a rhyming pattern for us? Of course not. Rahmaniyya of Allah, the alif noon in there is trying to indicate some sort of intensity and abundance. When we look at the tafsir, you see, just like Furqan, Ghadban, and other words that have this alif noon, the Rahmaniyya of Allah is talking about that mercy which is so abundant that it is given to every single one of His creation, whether they believe in Him or not, whether they obey Him or not. That is His Rahmaniyya. But there is a second mercy, and that is His Rahimiyya. The Rahimiyya is that mercy of Allah which is given to a special group of people. It is not the standard things that we need to live our lives in this world. Rather, it is something that is better. It is things like the tawfiq to pray to Him and to do ibadah. It is things like knowledge. It is things like guidance. Those things that will help us for our real home. How do we know that Allah has these two types of mercy apart from Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim? We see another verse of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. My mercy encompasses everything. But then He continues, فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِنَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. My mercy encompasses everything, but I will write it down. I will make it firm for who? For those people who have taqwa, for those who give charity, and for those who believe in our signs. This, when we come to the people who are termed the Sabirin in the original verse, we say they have the special mercy, it is the Rahimiyya of Allah. It is not the Rahmaniyya only, it is the special mercy that is given to them. Because otherwise, what would be the point of mentioning them? The whole point is that this is a special mercy, it's not the general mercy that reaches everyone. Why does it reach them? Because they are the Sabirin. And so they are the ones who are entitled to the special mercy of Allah. As a small note on the side, what is it that allows us to become deserving of His special mercy? Yes, we could become part of the Sabirin, but a more general way of understanding it is to say that sometimes when I receive the general mercy of Allah, I have a choice. I have been given food and drink. I have been given shelter. I have been given a good spouse. I have been given a good family, a good community. These are part of the Rahmaniyya of Allah. If I am to use them in the way that Allah wants it, then He will elevate my status to qualify for the Rahimiyya of Allah as well. In other words, if I want to move from the Rahmaniyya to the Rahimiyya, I take that general mercy, I use it in the way that Allah wants, and I will qualify for the higher mercy of Allah. So the Sabirin, they qualify for the special mercy of Allah. What else do they qualify for? They qualify for positions of leadership. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, in surah number 32, verse 24, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا. And we appointed from them imams who guide by our command. Why? Because they were patient, because they exercised sabr. Meaning that sabr was the reason why the imams became imams. Now if we ask how many imams are there, you will tell me 12. There are 12 imams. What if I say there are 13? Shakes you a bit, doesn't it? No. What we mean by imam is not just the imam in terms of the 12 Shia imam. Imam we mean as a position of leadership. And we see that even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He was a prophet, he was the best of prophets, but he also had the role of being an imam, meaning that he was a guide and a leader for the people. Which other prophet was also an imam, which is mentioned in the Quran? Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, son. Inni ja'iluka linnasi imama. The Prophet Ibrahim is told, I am making you an imam. Why is it that he was an imam? Why is it, or what is it that he had to go through to become an imam? If we look at the life of Prophet Ibrahim, we touched on it a bit yesterday, but we see that he went through stages. The stages are encapsulated in a general way in one of these hadith. It's really nice. The hadith says, اتخذ الله إبراهيم عبدا قبل أن يتخذه نبيا. Allah took Ibrahim as a slave before he took him as a prophet. وَنَبِيًّا قَبْلَ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَهُ رَسُولًا. And he took him as a prophet before he took him as a messenger. وَرَسُولًا قَبْلَ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَهُ خَلِيلًا. The title of Ibrahim alayhi salam is Khalil. And he took him as a messenger before he took him as that close and warm friend. وَخَلِيلًا قَبْلَ, and it doesn't say يَتَّخِذَهُ, he says أَنْ يَجْعَلَهُ إِمَامًا. Imama is not about just taking or choosing. Imama is about appointing. And he takes him as he takes him as a Khalil before he appoints him as an Imam. فَلَمَّا جَمَعَ لَهُ هَذِهِ الْأَشْيَاء قَالَ إِنِّي جَعَلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. It is only when all of these things are within or gathered within Ibrahim alayhi salam that the statement is made that I am making you an Imam. What did Prophet Ibrahim had to go through? Prophet Ibrahim, as we know, he had the challenge of smashing the idols. And as a result of that, he was going to be thrown into the fire. Then he had the challenge of leaving his family in the barren land of Makkah. Then he had the challenge of sacrificing Prophet Ismail. It is this sabr that he exercises, the perseverance where he doesn't give up, that allows him to become the Imam of his people. Finally, what else is the station of the Sabirin? Another verse tells us, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah, inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. We call this the ma'iyya of Allah. Allah is saying, oh, the ones who have believed, seek help through patience and prayer. Why? Because Allah is with the patient ones. Again, we ask the question, is Allah not with all of us? I mean, surely Allah is with us all the time. Huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum. Doesn't He say that in the Quran? He is with you wherever you may be. Again, we have the concept of general and special. We see, just like the rahmah of Allah, some of it is general, but some of it is special. The ma'iyya, the idea of the companionship of Allah, yes, in the general way, He is with everyone, but He singles out just a few groups of people, where He says, ma'as sabirin. Sabirin are one of them. Others include, for example, muttaqeen, muhsinin, but there's very few groups that He mentions. One of the few is the sabirin. So, what are the station of the Sabirin? Number one, they have the special blessings and mercy. Number two, because of their sabr, they are made into imams. And number three, they have the special companionship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to sum it up, we have a hadith of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Where he says, As-sabru min al-iman bi manzilat al-ra's min al-jasad. The position of patience with respect to our faith, our iman, is like the position of the head with respect to the rest of the body. And then he continues, وَلَا إِيمَانَ لِمَنْ لَا صَبْرَ لَهُ. Just like the body is not going to function at all if the head is not there, the iman has got no value, no way of functioning if sabr isn't there. And so sabr is a key part of our iman. Please recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So what is the meaning of sabr? Our second question. Now normally when you look at the translations, what do we see sabr translated as? Patience, right? Sabr normally translates as patience. And this is another one of those concepts where when we look at the translation alone, we kind of adopt the ideas of that word from what we have seen in our societies and in our daily lives. So what is the first thing that comes to mind when I say be patient? You think of yourself, for example, stuck in traffic, and you're being told, it's okay, be patient, you'll reach there. Or you see yourself in a doctor's waiting room, right? And your turn just isn't coming. There's 5 people ahead of you. This patient is taking so long. When is it going to be my turn? Somebody says, be patient, be patient. This concept of patience, whilst it is not incorrect, but it is only a partial understanding of patience. Because we see it as a very passive form. When we're in those situations, we see patience as something that we just have to wait it out, right? Just like when we say the word intidhar, we are doing intidhar of the Imam. The best of ibadah in these days is the intidhar of the Imam. What does intidhar mean? To await the Imam. Once again, we use the English word. What does waiting mean? You're in the waiting room. You're sitting there, waiting, waiting, waiting. It's very passive. But rather, if you look at the word intidhar, it comes from the word nazar, meaning to look. Imagine you are going to meet a long lost relative of yours, a childhood friend, somebody who's beloved to you. They're arriving in the airport. You are going to go collect them. You're not going to just sit in the car. You're going to go and wait, and you're going to look at those doors because you want to be the first one who sees them come out. That is the meaning of intidhar. Watching out, keeping an eye for when that person comes. That is the true active meaning of intidhar. What is the active meaning of sabr now? Is it simply a case of waiting? Well, it's not. Once again, we refer to the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He says to us, as-sabru thalathatun. There are 3 types of sabr. Sabrun ala ta'ah, to have sabr upon obedience. Was-sabru anil ma'siyah, and to have sabr away from disobedience. Was-sabru indal bala, and have sabr when you are in tribulation. Can you see the prepositions have a meaning to them? You have to have sabr ala ta'ah. You have to be persevering on obeying Allah. That is something active. You have to be persevering away from disobedience. But you also have to be persevering when you are in tribulation. Think of obedience. When we are told persevere in obedience, that's because obedience is not easy. Sometimes we have to wake up in the middle of the night for Salatul Fajr. 3 o'clock in the morning, at least where I am. Over here, maybe a little bit later. But it's difficult to wake up. In summer, when the days are long, the nights are short, you have to wake up very early. In summer, you're told you have to fast. I don't know what time it ends over here, if it's the standard 7:30, which is the highest one. But in places, you have to go on till 9:30, 10 o'clock in the night. It's not easy. It's hot. You get thirsty. Allah is saying, no, persevere. Don't just sit there being patient. No, it's about persevering. It's active. As-sabru anil ma'asiyah. Have sabr away from disobedience. Sometimes we encounter things which are very difficult, and we are tempted to disobey Allah. Somebody insults us in public. We could get up and react to that. Our friends are all gossiping and backbiting. It's difficult to say, I'm sorry, but we can't talk about this. Or I'm sorry, I need to step away. It's not easy. It's very easy to just be part and parcel of it. It's very easy to be tempted to look at something that I'm not supposed to look at, to listen to something that I'm not supposed to listen to. Allah is saying, no, persevere, actively put effort in and move yourself away. Even in bala, the third one, it's not just passive. It's not a case of, oh, when it's difficult, when times are tough, you just wait it out. Somebody has passed away, you feel that this person has, become detached from you, you're feeling sorry. Allah is saying, persevere. Don't let go of your faith. Don't despair. You need to keep your effort. You need to keep going. This is what we mean by sabr. Sabr in Islam is something very, very active. And just to prove this point, again, we look at the Quran, where there is this verse talking about persevering in battle. What does sabr mean in battle? Does it mean just to wait? If they hit me, it's okay? No. Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabi harrad al-mu'minina ala al-qital. O Prophet, urge the believing ones to fight. In yakun minkum 'ishruna sabirun yaghlibu mi'atayn. If there are 20 who are persevering, who have sabr from among you, they will overcome 200. The ratio is 1 to 10. How do we know it's a ratio? Because it continues. وَإِنْ يَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ مِئَةٌ يَغْلِبُ أَلْفًا مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. And if there are 100 of you, they shall overcome 1,000 of the disbelievers. And so we see that if it's talking about sabr in battle, it cannot be something that is passive, it is something that is active. Now I want to take you to a story, again from one of the prophets. And this story is seen in Surah Al-Baqarah. It's towards the end of Surah Al-Baqarah on page 40. It is the story starts verse number 246. And this is the story of the Bani Israel after the time of Prophet Musa. The Quran starts by saying, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alam tara ila al-mala'i min Bani Israel min ba'di Musa. Did you see the Bani Israel, the chiefs of the Bani Israel after the time of Prophet Musa? I'm not going to go verse by verse, but I'll tell you what the story is, and we reach the conclusion from the story. Basically, from the time of Prophet Musa, when they were saved, when they managed to cross the Red Sea. Remember yesterday we talked about how they looked back, they said, oh, we've been caught now, game is over. Prophet Musa says, no, Allah is going to guide me. The river is open, they cross the sea, the army of Fir'aun is drowned. Now they are the chosen ones. And so what happens after this is a sense of pride and arrogance enters the Bani Israel. And they start becoming a very disobedient people. And as a result of that, they end up being a very humiliated nation. Everywhere they go, they are despised. They even refuse, as we see, to go and fight and get their own homeland. The homeland that they are after today, well, they refused it at that time, right? So we see them now turning to the prophet of the time. The prophet is called Prophet Samuel. And they say to him, ask Allah to give us a king. Give us a king who will help us to regain our dignity, regain our homes. Many of our children have been killed because of the persecution we've gone through. This king can lead us to victory. The Prophet says to them, هَلْ عَسَيْتُمْ إِن كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالَ أَلَّا تُقَاتِلُوا. Suppose Allah gives you a king. Suppose He leads you to battle. Isn't it possible that He will take you to battle and you will decide not to fight? And they say, no, of course not. Why would we refuse to fight when we've been taken out of our homes and all this persecution has happened? And so the test starts here. What's the first test? The first test is that Allah appoints a man by the name of Talut to be their king. Now Talut is not one of the wealthy people. He is one of those who Allah calls, he has ilm and he has basta. He has strength, bodily strength. He has been appointed as the king of the Bani Israel. Test number one, are you going to obey this king or not? Out of all the Bani Israel there, the majority of them fail the first test. Why? Because they say, how can you appoint him to be the king when we have more wealth and prestige? We're not going to follow him. And so a lot of the people, they leave Talut. Now, Talut has the mission to go and regain their homes, regain their dignity. So they set off on a mission to go and enter a particular land. Test number two comes. فَلَمَّا فَصَلَ طَالُوتُ بِالْجُنُودِ قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مُبْتَلِيكُمْ بِنَهَرٍ فَمَنْ شَرِبَ مِنْهُ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي وَمَنْ لَمْ يَطْعَمْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي. The second test is that as we are marching on this way to the battle, Allah is going to test you with a river. You are going to be hungry, thirsty, tired, and you're going to want to drink. But Allah is going to test you with this river. Whoever drinks from this river, he's no longer with me. He has to separate from me. But whoever manages to have patience and does not drink from this river, he will be with me. From the huge amount of Bani Israel, we're already down to a small group who accept Talut as the king. Now, it says the majority of them drank from the river. Only a few are left with Talut as they progress to the battlefield. Test number three. They encounter the enemies on the other side in the land that they're supposed to be entering. And they see there is somebody on the other side called Jalut. Jalut, known as Goliath in English, is a very strong warrior. And out of the few that are left, what do they say? We are not going to fight this man. We are not going to fight this man. What do the people who are remaining say? قَالَ الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُ اللَّهِ. The people who know that they are going to meet Allah, what do they say? كَم مِّن فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. How often is it that a small group has managed to overcome a big group because of the permission of Allah? Wallahu ma'as sabirin. And Allah is with those who persevere. So this is the example of the group of people who we see have been filtered. Just like Imam Hussein alayhi salam was filtering his companions on the way to Mecca, he told them, those who want to leave, you can leave. On the night of Ashura, he tells them, if you want to leave, you can leave. He is filtering to see who are the sabirin. And we see from this story that these are the tests that this group of people had to go through. Final question that we want to move on to before we go into the practical points. What are the key components and the prerequisites of sabr? How is it that I can make sure that I can also qualify to be one of the sabirin? The three components that I will present to you are the components of isti'ana, seeking help from Allah. The second one is tawakkul, which we introduced yesterday, relying on Allah. And the third is rida, being pleased with the decree of Allah. Now let's go through these one by one. In Surah An-Nahl, verse number 127, Allah says, وَاصْبِرْ وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Do you remember how when we introduced the concept of ibadah, we say إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, but immediately after that we say وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So that we don't fall into the trap of thinking, I now am doing something for Allah. This is my giving back to Allah, my ibadah. Allah is saying, no. Even in your ibadah, you need to seek help from Allah. Allah is saying the same thing over here. Wasbir, and persevere. وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And patience is not except because of Allah. Who is going to give you the tawfiq of being patient? It is Allah. So first thing that we need to understand is this patience is something that we need to ask Allah for. It's not something that I just happen to have and I am doing a favor to Allah by being patient in the tribulations that I face. The group that we just saw who fought with Talut in the end, just before the battle starts, they recite that verse that I started the Majlis with. رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. O our nurture, O our Lord, grant us patience. It is not something that is there by default. We have to ask Allah to give us the ability to be patient, and they say keep our feet firm so that we can overcome the kafirin. So that is the first component. What is the second component? الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. The people who are patient or persevere and they rely on Allah. عَلَى اللَّهِ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. عَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. They take Allah as their wakil. If you remember yesterday we talked about tawakkul, that this is the idea of taking Allah as your wakil. And it composes of or consists of three stages. We said you rely on Allah before the tribulation even comes. You rely on Allah when you are going through the tribulation. And you also rely on Allah after the tribulation has passed. And that is the third component, and that is rida. Rida, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he tells us, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, in just two words, as-sabru rida. This is that last component of tawakkul, where whatever Allah decrees, I am patient with it. Meaning what? That I am happy and satisfied with whatever He has given me. Please recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the practical points. We all look for the practical points. How are we going to change our lives? Well, as usual, we're going to have to make sure that the practical points are based on a solid foundation. The first stage is to make it practical in the mind, like we've always been saying, that I need to make sure that I change my understanding of this world. This is the theme that we've been going through. I need to make sure that when I go through tribulations in my life, I am aware of the fact that these tribulations are part and parcel of my life here. Allah told us in that verse, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ etc. etc. That we are going to test you. Don't look for eternal happiness over here. Realize that this dunya is a dunya which is supposed to be full of bala, but don't despair. Don't even think it's something passive that I just need to go through. We said that it is the planting ground. The other word that I had used was a launch pad. We use the dunya in order to rise even higher. So that is the first practical point, because it's a practical point of the mind, a recalibration of our understanding and our view of the world. Where do we see this? Again, وَلَنَبْلُوَكُمْ حَتَّى نَعْلَمَ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّابِرِينَ. We will test you surely until we ascertain from you who are the mujahideen and the sabirin from amongst you. What is the second application? Now let's go to a personal application, because we can think of application both in terms of an individual level, we can think of it at a social level as well. In a practical application of sabr, unfortunately, again, we have to say that the society doesn't help us. We have reached a stage where everything is at the touch of a button. I open the tap and water comes out. I switch the switch and the light switches on. Everything today is at the touch of a button. Unfortunately, this makes us, and especially the youngsters from amongst us, including myself, complacent. We expect that everything should be at the touch of a button. But unfortunately, everything is not like that. We sometimes fall into the trap of expecting everything to be like this. But Allah says that no, some things in life, they take time. When I go into a job, for example, before I hear stories of how the uncles and the grandfathers, they went into a job and they worked for years and years and years, and finally they achieved a promotion. They became the manager. Today I go into a corporate company, I give them 1 year. If you're not going to promote me, I'm going to find another company. Suddenly I want everything like this. I'm expecting the promotion overnight. The projects that we do, be it individually, be it at a community level. I enter a project, but with this condition, that if I do not see the fruits of this project within a small amount of time, within a few days, a few weeks, at most a few months, it's not worth going through this project. If this were the case, nobody would have planted trees, because those who have planted trees know that they will not even benefit from the shade of this tree, let alone the fruits of that tree. But you have to think forward and realize that everything is not going to happen immediately. What else is there? Marriage. Those of you who are engaged, you probably feel that you've fallen in love. Little do you know that love is going to take place after you get married. Those who are married know, and they're thinking, what did I miss? But even when you do get married, it's not something that happens immediately, right? It's something that needs to develop. That love comes after you get to know that person, you face challenges together. That is when the love develops. But what do we see today? Firstly, I'm deceived in trying to marry somebody because of their position, their beauty, their wealth, and I expect that love is going to come out of this. Then when I go into the relationship, suppose love does come, it's not going to come immediately. Love is going to take time to develop. But because we want everything TikTok, we end up getting divorced. We end up seeing marriages breaking down before they even had the chance to grow. 6 months, 6 days sometimes. And it's not, unfortunately, just amongst the youth, it is even amongst the elderly. We see the divorce rates going up even at that age. Somebody has been living with their spouse for 20 years. Now, because the way society has brainwashed them, the marriage just ends like that after 20 years. What else is there? Knowledge. We want to learn about Islam. I want you to tell me why I have to pray qasr namaz when it comes to this situation or this distance, and give me all the proofs, but I'm giving you 1 minute. In 1 minute, explain to me why I should pray qasr namaz, otherwise I'm not interested. It doesn't work like that. Knowledge is not something that is just going to appear like this. We see the Maraja, they have gone through years and years and years and years of toil and struggle in order to learn Islam. This knowledge doesn't just come overnight. This knowledge is not going to come just by sitting in front of the mimbar. We have to struggle. We have to persevere. Things take time. If I want to understand something, I can't expect, number one, that somebody just telling me the proof of it. Number one, will I be able to understand it? Number two, will I be able to understand it just like this? Or do I need to work out what the principles are? What is the background behind it? Which corpus of hadith do I need to refer to, etc., 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 just like in any other field. But we are in the realm of wanting TikTok Islam. We want Islam to be TikTok. You want to tell me something about Islam? It's like what we call the elevator pitch. You know, when you have to impress your manager in the company that you want a job in, they say, you have 30 seconds until the elevator reaches the top floor, give him your best impression. We want Islam like this. In 30 seconds, convince me, otherwise I'm not interested. Islam is not something like that. We've lost our attention spans. You think of the companions that were there in the time of the Imams and the Prophet. When they would hear something, they would catch it. Their focus was there. They would be able to listen to the Imam for a long time and remember everything. Today we have everything. In technology, we have ways of writing notes, deleting, recording, and our attention span is not there. Not only can we not sit there to learn, but we want it within 2 minutes. Knowledge is not like that. What is the third one? Sorry, the fifth one. The fifth one and the final one, and then we'll move on and conclude, is spirituality. Everybody is talking about spirituality. Everybody wants to go into spirituality. We don't have time to go into the crux of what spirituality is and where this word came from, whether the concept of it applies in Islam. But Allah is telling us that spirituality is not something that you get overnight. Oh, this morning I woke up for namaz Shab, and now I'm looking around. Where are the angels? I should be able to see the angels now. It's raining so heavy, I should be able to just teleport myself to the Masjid. I recited namaz Shab. No, these things don't happen. These things are not even the goal of what I should be after. These karamat are part and parcel of the journey. They're not the goals. These are what the ulama say. These are the pipi chocolate. The chocolate that you're going to get on the journey just to keep you going. That's not the goal of what you should be after. You look at the maraja, you look at some of the ulama, the urafa, they will tell you, we have struggled for 30, 40, 50 years. And our concern has only been persevering and making sure that what we are doing is for the pleasure of Allah. That I am abiding by the Sharia. I'm making sure I do the wajibat, I stay away from the muharramat. 50 years I have done this, not one single karamah. Nor did I expect it, nor did it get given to me. After 50 years, maybe they are given something. Why? Because that thing is not the goal. That thing is not what they are supposed to be after. These are just things that happen on the side to motivate us. The goal is Allah. The goal is whether I feel that feeling inside me or not, I am still persevering for the sake of Allah. There is a story of a man called Sayyid Hashim al-Haddad. Al-Haddad meaning he was an ironmonger. He used to work with iron and make different things out of the iron. And this job at that time didn't pay so well. But he found a teacher to help him on this journey. And that teacher was none other than Sayyid Ali Qadi, who is the teacher and spiritual mentor of Allama Tabatabai, the author of Al-Mizan. This was another student of his. Now this Hashim, Sayyid Hashim al-Haddad, he had a big problem in his life. And his problem was summarized in 3 letters. M-I-L. Who's with me? Mother-in-law. Okay? Because he came from a very poor background, and this family had given their daughter to him, but he didn't have much wealth. And the mother-in-law would see the daughter living in poor conditions, and every day she would taunt him and insult him. And he was getting so fed up with all the abuse that was being thrown to him by this mother-in-law that he goes to his teacher, Sayyid Ali Qadi, and he says, "Do you allow me to divorce my wife?" And the teacher says to him, "Is there anything wrong with your wife?" And he says, "No, my wife is very good and she is obedient and she is with me. But this mother-in-law, I cannot take it anymore. The abuse that she is hurling to me every day, allow me to divorce my wife." Sayyid Ali Qadi says to him, "No, persevere. Your mother-in-law is going to be the means of your salvation and progress." Wow, if only that was the case for all of us, no? One day, Sayyid Hashim al-Haddad, he goes back home after a tiring day in the heat of the summer. And guess who's sitting in front of the house? The mother-in-law. Before he even enters, she starts her ranting and hurling abuse. He can't take it. He's had such a hard day, he doesn't even go into the house. He climbs the steps and goes onto the rooftop to go and rest over there. But she doesn't stop. They didn't have mics, but she shouted really loudly so that even the neighbors can hear now. And she keeps going and speaking and taunting him. He gets so fed up that he wants to retaliate. And then he remembers the words of his teacher. He says, "No, persevere. Don't retaliate." He walks out of the house and he starts wandering aimlessly outside because of what he is going through. And that is when he says, "The doors of the heavens opened for me." At that time, the reality was shown to me. What that means, we don't know. But the point is that this was a means, the perseverance, the patience that he exercised, not expecting things to happen overnight, that allowed him to reach the state that he did. And he became one of the famous Arafa. He goes back into the house and he starts kissing the hands and feet of the mother-in-law. So if you're ever in trouble, this is the solution. That's at an individual level. What about at a social level? If you remember the surah, the short surah that we keep coming to, Surah Al-Asr, gems inside this surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wal Asr, I swear by time. Innal insana lafi khusr. Verily, man is in loss. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. Except for the one who has believed and done righteous deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And those who enjoin upon each other the truth and enjoin upon each other patience. We need to make sure that this perseverance and this patience isn't something that's just individual. We need to make sure that we're helping each other. Sometimes it may just be between two people in the couple, the husband and the wife. When one is going through something that is difficult, the other one should not give up. The other one should not get fed up and get affected and annoyed by the situation. Rather, enjoin perseverance. Give energy, give effort, give motivation to your spouse so that they can come out of this. And they, inshallah, will do the same for you when you are in that situation. Sometimes it is to do with the family. Sometimes it's between father and son. Sometimes it is between mother and daughter. When we go through these times, we persevere ourselves, but we enjoin each other. We keep giving energy to each other to persevere. And it happens in the community. Communities are going to go through hard times. And when that happens, it's not a case of starting to blame each other and cause fitna and everything. Rather, stand up straight. Difficulties are going to happen. We enjoin each other to exercise the sabr. In the last verse of Surah Al Imran, and I will finish with this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu isbiru wa sabiru wa rabitu. Verse number 200 of Surah number 3, the last verse. Again, a very interesting tafsir about, from Allama Tabatabai in Al-Mizan, where he talks about how the essence of the community, the reality of a community is different to just the combination of all the individuals. It has a life of its own. Isbiru wa sabiru, both coming from the word sabr. Isbiru is the individual command. Allah is commanding us, persevere. But not just you, sabiru. persevere as a community together. Don't give up, don't despair. Hold each other's hands and go forward in achieving your goal. Remember, we said the goal can be at the individual level, the goal can be at the social level. At the individual level, persevere to your goal of ma'rifatullah through ibadah. At the social level, whatever it is that we're trying to inculcate in our societies, help each other to persevere to achieve those. We pray to Allah, inshallah, to make us of the sabirin and that we are able to have the qualities and the characteristics of the sabirin. As a summary, what have we mentioned today? We said that the sabirin have a very high station. They've been singled out for the mercy of Allah, the special mercy of Allah. They have been singled out for becoming the leaders of their people, and Allah has that special companionship with them. He is with them. Number two, we looked at the true meaning of sabr, and it is not something that is just passive, it is active. We have to persevere on obedience, away from disobedience, and within tribulation. Number three, the key components of sabr are: number one, to seek help from Allah. It doesn't come automatically. Number two, to rely on Him. And number three, to be satisfied with His decree. And finally, in terms of application, we need to first apply it in our minds. We need to realize that this sabr is something that is going to be part and parcel of our lives. Number two, we can progress individually in trying to achieve sabr and not expect everything to come overnight. And number three, we need to make sure that we are helping each other in achieving the sabr. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. I remind you of the words of Imam Hussein alayhi salam as he is talking to his companions and household on the night of Ashura. إني لا أعلم أصحابا أولى ولا خيرا من أصحابي. Verily, I do not know of any companions more loyal and more better than my companions. ولا أهل بيت أبر ولا أوصل من أهل بيتي. Nor of any household more righteous and more committed than my household. فجزاكم الله عني جميعا خيرا. So may Allah grant you the best of rewards. About 11 years before the tragedy of Karbala, we see that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he enters the room of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And he sees him on his deathbed. And the Imam sits next to him and starts weeping and crying profusely. Imam Hassan asks him, "Why, Ya Hussein, are you crying?" He says, "I am crying because of what they are going to do to you." Imam Hassan replies and says, "Yes, they are going to poison me, and this poison is going to penetrate through my body, and this will lead to my death. ولكن لا يوم كيومك يا أبا عبد الله. But there is no day like your day, O Aba Abdullah. 30,000 men will be charging against you and marching against you, all claiming to be from the companions and the ummah of our grandfather Muhammad. They will claim to be following the religion of Islam, but they will gather to shed your blood. They will violate your sanctity, and they will take your women as captives. Imam Hassan alayhi salam is not there on the day of Ashura alongside Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But on the night of Ashura, when the Imam is speaking to the companions and the Ahlul Bayt, and he is telling each of them of what is going to happen the next day, and what is going to be the end result, and how they are going to reach Shahada, he shows them their position in Jannah. Qasim, the youthful son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he comes to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and he asks him, Ya Am, wa ana uqtal? Oh my uncle, will I also be killed? Imam Hussein alayhi salam looks at him and he asks him a question. He says, Ya ibna akhi, kayfa al-mawt indak? Oh, the son of my brother, how is death in your eyes? How do you see death? He says, Ya Am, ahla min al-asal. Oh, my uncle, death in your way is sweeter than honey. You see this youth at the tender age of 13 and the insight that he has. The insight that he has at that young age to see death, to see life in its true way. Imam Hussein alayhi salam replies to him and he says to him, yes, verily, you will also be one of them. May your uncle be sacrificed for you. You will also join me and be alongside me to become shaheed after suffering a very terrible calamity. A time comes on the day of Ashura when all the companions have reached Shahada. Many of the Ahlul Bayt have also been slain. Now it is narrated in Nafasul Mahmum by Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi that Qasim comes to Hussein and he asks him permission to fight. Initially, Imam Hussein refuses and he doesn't allow Qasim to go to the battlefield. Perhaps Imam Hussein alayhi salam is recalling all the masa'ib of his brother Imam Hassan. Perhaps he is recalling those days when he was with him and he saw Imam Hassan vomiting out his liver because of the poison having penetrated his body. How can I let you go, O Qasim? This boy is the reflection of his brother. He is the one who has stayed with him for the last 10 years. This is Qasim who has come under the tarbiyah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Qasim continuously starts kissing the hands and the feet of Imam Hussein alayhi salam until Imam Hussein has no choice but to let him go. It is said at that tender age of 13, he walks into the battlefield like a shining moon with a sword in his hands. He is wearing a cloak, he is wearing a shirt, and he is walking with slippers. He enters the battlefield crying out, In tunkiruni fa'ana ibnu al-Hasan, صبت النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن. If you do not know me, I am the son of Hassan, the grandson of the Prophet, the chosen one. إني أنا القاسم من نسل علي, نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي. I am Qasim from the progeny of Ali. By the Lord of the house, we are closer to the Nabi. In some of the reports, it says that as he is fighting, he starts a brave and fierce battle to kill the opponents. But as the battle progresses, he looks down at his left slipper and he sees that the slipper is broken. And so he bends down to try and mend the slipper. There is a treacherous man by the name of Ibn Nufail. When he sees Qasim bending down, he decides that he will go and attack Qasim. Somebody is standing there behind and beside Nufail, Ibn Nufail, and says to him, "What is it that you want with this young boy? Is it not enough that the enemy have surrounded him?" But Ibn Nufail says, "By Allah, I will go and attack him." And he goes after Qasim and he strikes Qasim on the head, and Qasim falls down to the ground. In Ziyarat al-Nahiya, we see that it is said that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he sees this sight, he rushes into the battlefield like a wild falcon and he attacks the killer of Qasim like a furious lion. There's a lot of commotion as the enemy tries to come and help their soldier. But soon the dust settles and we see Imam Hussein. He is standing by the head of Qasim. Qasim is lying there with his feet stretched on the ground. And he cries out to him, saying to Qasim, "Ba'dan liqawmin qatalu." Curse be upon the nation who have killed you. وَمَنْ خَصْمُهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فِيكَ جَدُّكَ. While their enemy on the day of Qiyamah shall be your grandfather. عَزَّ وَاللَّهِ عَلَى عَمِّكَ. It is hard upon your uncle. أَن تَدْعُوهُ فَلَا يُجِيبُكَ. That he could not come to your aid when you called him. Oh, يُجِيبَكَ ثُمَّ لَا يَنْفَعُكَ. Or he answered, but he could not benefit you. Imam Hussein carries Qasim back to the tents. He holds him by his chest. But it is said that as he is taking him to the tents, the feet of Qasim can be seen trailing on the ground. Eventually he reaches the tents and he places the body of Qasim next to the body of his own son Ali al-Akbar. O Qasim, how bravely death you embraced, sweeter than honey you found its taste. But how will he take you back to the tents after this bitter turn of events? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We ask Allah for the tawfiq to help us transform ourselves to better people in these 10 days of mourning. We ask Allah to grant us a better understanding of the dunya and akhirah, and to help us and give us the strength of making the dunya a means for our akhirah. May Allah give us the strength to become from those who are considered to be the sabireen. May Allah hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and choose us to be the ones who are alongside him. We pray for the relief of all the oppression around the world. Anything good that has come to you from Allah. We offer the thawab of these majalis to the anbiya, the awsiya, the shuhada, the salaha, to the ulama, to our teachers, to our parents, to all those who have a right upon us. And we remember the marhameen with Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha.